So I had a really dumb idea. Here's the plan. I'm gonna try to beat Pokemon HeartGold and SoulSilver, but with a twist so painful it makes Whitney's Miltank look like a household pet. Every single Pokemon I use must be shiny hunted at full odds, which means no RNG manipulation, no shiny charm, just pure stubborn patience against the brutal 1 in 8,192 shiny rate odds. As if that wasn't enough pain, I'm adding Hardcore Nuzlocke rules on top. That means I'm playing on set mode, no items in battle, strict level caps based on the next gym leader's ace Pokemon, and of course, if a Pokemon faints, it's gone forever and no longer usable. So not only do I have to spend days to months hunting for each shiny, but I also have to keep them alive through Johto's toughest battles with no second chances. The mission? Build a full team of shinies and beat the Johto League champion. No Kanto, no Red, just a sparkly, stressful sprint to the Hall of Fame. Along the way, expect heartbreak, hype, way too many resets, and maybe even a few clutch saves that'll keep me from losing my mind completely. So grab your shiny charm that won't help at all, and let's get hunting. So after the introduction sequence, it was time to name my trainer, and obviously I went with Obscure since I am Obscurity after all. You know, you gotta keep the brand alive even if my patience doesn't survive this run. Then came the real torture, hunting for a shiny starter. If you've never done it in HeartGold and SoulSilver, here's how it goes. Boot up the game, spam A through Elm's dialogue, walk over to the starter machine, save in front of the machine, check if it sparkles, or rather if any Pokemon sparkles, and if they don't, then just reset. Each attempt takes about 10 to 15 seconds, which doesn't sound too bad until you realize you're going to be doing this about 1,000 times, questioning every single life choice that led you here. Now, I didn't actually choose Chikorita, it just happened to be the first starter that decided to shine. And after 131 hours, 131 hours of resets, there it was, my shiny golden Chikorita, also known as Goku. Honestly, I just sat there staring at the screen, trying to convince myself it was real and not a sleep-deprived hallucination. If you do the math, 131 hours at around 8 hours a day of grinding would be around 16 days straight of hunting. But in reality, it took me about a month, maybe a little bit more, since I wasn't grinding as hard every single day. Plus, I started this a long time ago. Still, at some point, I genuinely started to believe no Pokemon would ever show up shiny. With my first shiny finally on the team, half my sanity gone, and the Hardcore Nuzlocke rules looming over me, it was finally time to leave New Barktown and officially start this adventure. So I grabbed my shiny Goku, the Chikorita, headed over to see Professor Oak. Then I made my way back to Professor Elm, which meant it was time for the first rival battle against my edgy red-haired nemesis, whom I named Boo. Quick reminder if you're new here, on the channel I always give every single Pokemon a nickname based on a secret theme, and it's your job as a viewer to figure out what the theme is, so pay close attention to the nicknames given and drop your guesses in the comments below. I do read them all, and trust me, some of your guesses are hilariously creative and sometimes weirdly accurate too. Anyway, Boo stole Cyndaquil, but since his wasn't shiny, this battle was about to get as simple as it gets. I just spammed tackle until it fainted because when you spend 131 hours hunting for your first shiny, you're not about to lose to a basic starter with no sparkle. After that, we sat through the classic catching tutorial. You know, the one where everyone mashes A through, and then it was time to finally speedrun towards our second shiny encounter. Now, honestly, here I didn't really care what I got. A Geodude would have been great, a Zubat would have been fine, and even a Dunsparce would have been hilarious. But after another 92 hours of hunting, yeah, shiny hunting never really stops being painful, we finally landed on a shiny green Zubat, which I gave the nickname Piccolo. I'm curious, how do you guys feel about shiny Zubat? Do you guys like it shiny or do you despise it? Anyway, this shiny hunt took about 2 weeks in real time because for some reason, when I finally get the shiny starter, that's usually when I start pouring a ridiculous, unhealthy amount of hours into the run. And honestly, shiny Crobat is sick. So I was actually pretty hyped for this catch. After finishing up our second shiny hunt, I made my way to Violet City, the home of the first gym and more importantly, the entrance to Bellsprout Tower. I wasn't ready for the gym just yet, so I headed straight into the tower to do a little pre-training and XP farming. We pretty much cleared the whole building, knocking out sage after sage and stopped just short of the final boss at the top. Why? Because I wanted to add one more shiny to the team before facing him, and I had my eyes on one specific target, Mareep. So began the third shiny hunt of the run. And for once, the shiny gods were actually on my side. After just 59 hours, 59 hours, just 59 hours, which is considered a blessing in shiny-only territory, a shiny Mareep appeared. I immediately nicknamed her Chi-Chi, keeping with the nickname theme. With Chi-Chi now officially part of the squad, we headed back into Bellsprout Tower to challenge Elder Lee. His first Pokemon, a Bellsprout, got paralyzed immediately by Chi-Chi's Thunder Shock. And then Goku, our trusty Chikorita, came in to finish the job with a few tackles. Next was his Hoo-Hoo, which got absolutely zapped by Chi-Chi in just a few hits. And finally, another Bellsprout, which Goku handled the same way he handles everything else, by ramming into it repeatedly until it fainted. Now that the team was warmed up and looking good, it was time to challenge Falkner, the first gym leader and Johto's bird specialist, which sounds cool until you remember electric types exist. The battle opened with Chi-Chi versus Pidgey. One Thunder Shock softened it up, and then I swapped it to Piccolo to finish it off with a Leech Life. I just wanted to give Piccolo some spotlight time. Then came Falkner's ace, Pidgeotto. I swapped back into Chi-Chi, who made quick work of it with a couple more Thunder Shocks, and with that our first gym badge was in the bag. Next stop, Azalea Town, where bigger challenges are waiting. Upon arriving in Azalea Town, it didn't take long before we ran into our old friends in black, Team Rocket. Turns out they've been cutting off Slowpoke tails for a profit. Yeah, these guys are evil. So down to the Slowpoke well we went, where a few grunt battles stood between us and mini-boss Proton. But before throwing hands, we had a little team upgrade. Goku evolved into Bayleaf, just a little glow up, nothing major. He's still a tackle spamming menace, just now slightly taller. As for Proton, the battle felt like I was intruding on a tutorial. We were pretty over leveled, so I figured, hey, let's have a little fun. Goku started things off by cleaning up his Zubat with 2 Razor Leaves, then Proton sent out his ace, Coughing. Since the fight was a little too easy, I decided to let the whole squad take turns bullying it. Goku landed a Razor Leaf, Chi-Chi followed up with a couple of Thunder Shocks, leaving Coughing paralyzed thanks to Static, and finally Piccolo stepped in with Bite to finish it off. So yes, everybody got their chance to swing, and no, I don't regret orchestrating a team beatdown. With Team Rocket out of the way and Kurt returning safely with the Slowpoke, Azalea Town could breathe again. But I couldn't relax just yet. It was time to face Bugsy, the bug-type gym leader. Now normally Bugsy isn't too threatening, but this is a hardcore shiny only Nuzlocke in Soul Silver, so I wasn't gonna underestimate anything. Before heading in, Chi-Chi hit her glow up too, evolving into a Flaffy. Bugsy led with his infamous Scyther, and I opened up with Piccolo. A few wing attacks were enough to trigger Scyther's Citrus Berry, so I played it safe and swapped out into Chi-Chi. Thankfully, Scyther made contact and got paralyzed by Static on the switch-in. One Thunder Shock later, and the biggest threat on his team was already down. Next came Metapod, and I figured this was a good time to stall it out with Poison Powder from Goku. Once poisoned, Goku went into full tackle mode until Metapod crumbled under pressure. And finally, Bugsy's Kakuna came out, and this one didn't even stand a chance. Piccolo flew back in and spammed wing attack until victory was ours. With Bugsy defeated and a shiny badge to show for it, there was just one thing standing between me and the next route. My edgy red-haired rival Boo, ready to throw hands again. And this time he came a little bit stronger, but so did we. Boo opens up with Ghastly and I lead with Piccolo. He tries to trap us with Mean Look, but that just means that I don't have to waste a turn switching. So I command Piccolo to bite that ghost down twice, and Ghastly fades into the afterlife. Next up is a Squilava, so I send in Chi-Chi. First order of business, I command a Thunder Wave to paralyze it. After that, I have Chi-Chi unload a series of Thunder Shocks until Quilava finally goes down. Not sure why Boo thought spamming Smokescreen and Leer was the move, but hey, I'm not complaining, that's on him. His last Pokemon's a Zubat. I swap back into Piccolo to shake off the accuracy drop and then tag Chi-Chi back in. A couple more Thunder Shocks and Zubat drops. I was actually shocked it didn't one-shot, but whatever, a win is a win. Fast forward, it's time for Whitney. And if you played any Johto game, you already know Whitney's Miltank is no joke. She only has 2 Pokemon, but she's caused more trauma than half the villain teams in this franchise. Whitney leads with her Clefairy and I open with Chi-Chi. I instantly use back-to-back Thunderbolts and Chi-Chi handles it with 0 damage taken, which is crucial because it sets me up perfectly for the Miltank. Miltank rolls out and I swap into Goku. His job is simple, set up Reflect to keep the team up from being steamrolled, and then I bring Chi-Chi back in to finish the job. On the switch in, I go for Thunderbolt, and boom, Miltank gets paralyzed. That lucky paralysis changed everything. I'd honestly go as far to say that it may have been the run saver. From there, I just spammed Thunderbolt until the cow went down. Strangely, Whitney doesn't give us the badge right away. She does her whole crying thing, but eventually hands it over. That's badge number 3 in the books. At this point, I figured I should keep moving forward with the story, but then I thought, why not expand the squad? So it was time for shiny number 4. And who do you think our next shiny will be? If you guessed Eevee, you're spot on. This hunt wasn't nearly as soul-crushing as it could have been. After just over 13 hours and a few near breakdowns later, I was blessed with the Sparkly Fox. That glow, completely worth it. Fun fact, I completely forgot to nickname Eevee in this run, so let's just give Eevee the nickname Broly just for the sake of the video. With Broly secure, we make our way to Ecruteak City, where the plot finally thickens. Inside the Burn Tower, we meet Yucine, who's obsessed with Suicune and Morty, the city's gym leader. And just like that, the story of Raikou, Entei, and Suicune begins. But before we can even admire the scenery for too long, our old friend Boo shows up once again ready for another battle. Only this time, the stakes are higher. Boo opens up with Ghastly and I lead with Piccolo, who, let's be real, doesn't exactly look like the same bat we started off with. One swift bite later and Ghastly vanishes into the afterlife for a second time. Then comes Boo's newly acquired Magnemite. I swapped it to Chi-Chi to deal with the Metal Menace. Now, normally, an electric type move against a steel electric type Pokemon wouldn't be ideal, but Chi-Chi's built different. Chi-Chi used Thunderbolt. But here's where things got dicey. Somewhere between all the electric sparks flying, Magnemite hit us with a Thunder Wave and confused us with a Supersonic. So now we're paralyzed and confused. Classic. There are moments where I genuinely thought I'd lose Chi-Chi to a rogue self-hit, but thankfully, through sheer willpower, she landed a second Thunderbolt and fried the little gear ball. Next up, the smokescreen menace himself, Quilava, or as I like to call him, the evasion gremlin. I made the decision to swap out Chi-Chi and bring Piccolo in instead. Quilava didn't go on the offense in this fight, instead he dedicated himself to spamming smokescreen once again. Even with the evasiveness drop, Piccolo powered through it like a champ, landing enough wing attacks to take it out. Boo's final Pokemon was his trusty Zubat. I swapped him to Goku to clear the stat changes, and then swapped back to Piccolo just to send a message. Piccolo showed that there's only room for one bat on this team. 2 wing attacks later, and Zubat was grounded for good. Another rival battle down, and this one wasn't too close for comfort. Well, except for that one close call with Chi-Chi. Moving on, it was Morty time. Now, Morty's team may seem spooky to the untrained eye, but I had one thing he didn't. A Crobat named Piccolo. Morty sends out Ghastly, and well, let's just say Ghastly couldn't even get a move off before Piccolo ended it with one bite. Then came Haunter, same story. One bite, and it was lights out. Morty's Ace Gengar was supposed to be scary, right? Wrong. One bite, done. Lastly, he sends out another Haunter, clearly just going through the motions at this point, and it falls just as quickly. It wasn't even a sweep, it was a snack break for Piccolo. With that, we claimed our 4th gym badge. After that, I headed west towards Olivine City, only to be rudely interrupted by Boo standing at the entrance again. I ignored him and went straight to the lighthouse, where I learned that the Ampharos keeping the light burning was sick and needed medicine from Cianwood City, so off we went. Now this part of the journey was particularly special, because on the way to Cianwood, something incredible happened. Chi-Chi evolved into an Ampharos, and let me tell you, shiny Ampharos might be one of the cleanest looking Pokemon ever. That soft pink glow, it screams elegance. Definitely a proud moment for the team. Upon entering Cianwood City, we immediately came across Suicune again, doing its usual majestic sprint across the water. Yucine shows up once more, still simping for Suicune, and this time he actually challenges us to a battle. He starts with Drowsy and I lead with Chi-Chi. 2 Thunderbolts later and Drowsy is out cold. Then comes his Electro, which worried me a bit considering the potential for a self-destruct. I decided not to risk switching out and just kept blasting Thunderbolts. To my surprise, it was taking way more damage than I expected. 3 hits later, Electro was gone and we avoided any explosions. Lastly, he sent out Haunter, which got completely one-shot by, yup, you guessed it, another Thunderbolt. Yucine, my guy, you might want to start obsessing over something else because clearly Suicune isn't impressed. Now, while we're in Cianwood, you know we had to take on Chuck, fighting-type gym leader who claims to train with Waterfall slamming down on his head. Very cool, very anime. He starts with Primeape, and I lead with Piccolo. A clean wing attack hits, and Primeape retaliates with a Rock Slide. It does decent damage, but Piccolo tanks it like a champ. Chuck uses a Hyper Potion to stall, but with 2 more wing attacks, shut that down real fast. Primeape falls. Then comes Poliwrath. First wing attack lands, then Poliwrath tries to use Hypnosis, but it misses. 1 more wing attack, and the badge was secured. Chuck didn't even stand a chance. With badge number 5 now in hand, we pick up the secret potion and head straight back to Olivine City to heal the sick Ampharos. Ampharos powers back up, the lighthouse shines once again, and our path to our next adventure is now clear. First things first, it was finally time to give Broly, our little Eevee, the proper spotlight he deserves. After traveling with us for a good chunk of the journey, Broly has more than earned his evolution. With high friendship and perfect timing, our Eevee evolves into a majestic Espeon. And let me just say, shiny Espeon, criminally underrated. But with Broly evolved, it was time to seek out the final piece of the team, a shiny Wooper. And I know what you're probably thinking, final shiny already. Well, you'll understand why I'm calling this the final shiny soon enough. The hunt for shiny Wooper turned into a full-blown side quest from hell. We were out in the wild hoping that fate would finally roll out in our favor. Every encounter started blending together. At one point, I wasn't even sure if Wooper was real anymore. But then finally, after 48 hours and about 8 minutes of actual game time, and nearly a month in real life, something magical happened. What appeared before us was not just a shiny Wooper, it was a full-blown shiny Quagsire, a full evolution. I thought I was going to spend another eternity hunting for a Wooper, and instead the universe gifted me the final form on a silver platter. Was I surprised? Absolutely. Was I disappointed? Not even a little. I caught her with no hesitation and gave her a fitting nickname, Android 18. Cool, pink, powerful, and a little bit unpredictable. With Android 18 secured, our shiny squad is nearly complete. Only 1 more to go. But first, let's go handle business back in Olivine City. It's time to take on the Steel-type specialist and Olivine gym leader, Jasmine. This battle's a bit of a turning point. Her team might be small, but she's no joke. Let's just see how our team stacks up against her relentless Steel defense. Jasmine opens up with a Magnemite, and I respond with our newly acquired Quagsire, Android 18. She wastes no time, One Earthquake and the Magnemite is completely erased from existence. No buildup, no suspense, just dirt nap. Jasmine's Ace Steelix comes out next, and I decide to set the tempo with Rain Dance. Steelix swings back with Iron Tail, but it barely chips away at her health, maybe 20 HP tops. That's the power of a tank. The Rain boosts our Surf, which slams into the Steelix for a near one-shot. Her Citrus Berry kicks in, giving Steelix a sliver of hope, but another Iron Tail still doesn't cut it. One more Surf, and it's game over. Her final Magnemite? You guessed it, one Earthquake and it's scrap metal. Jasmine didn't put up much of a fight, but badge number 6 is secured. Now it's time, the final shiny. The one that truly matters, the one you can't ignore even if you wanted to. The red Gyarados. Why save it for last? Simple answer to that would be time. I wanted to wrap this journey up and get this video out before the next decade. Gyarados was practically delivered to us, and I wasn't about to pass up a guaranteed shiny. We caught it with ease and gave it a name that might finally make the theme click in your head. Janemba. Still not sure what the nickname theme is? That one should have sealed it for you all. After catching Janemba, we team up with Lance, yeah, that Lance, and head into the murky depths of Mahogany's Town's hidden Team Rocket base. Lance is done playing games, and so am I. We uncover the hideout and make our way through a gauntlet of grunts and puzzles until we reach a familiar face, one of the key Team Rocket executives. He's not thrilled to see us and immediately challenges us to a battle. Now, Petrol's team is kind of laughable at this point. He sends out a Zubat, Chi-Chi steps in and deletes it instantly with Thunderbolt, Coughing comes out next, another Thunderbolt, another one-shot, Raticate tries to hang in there. There's only so much that he can do. A follow-up discharge closes the curtain. The guy barely slowed us down. Next up is one of the few unique moments in this game, a double battle alongside Lance himself. Facing off against Executive Ariana and a Grunt. I lead with Android 18 and fire off Surf across the board, hitting both of their Pokemon, Drowsy and Arbok. Unfortunately, Drowsy disables Surf right away, and Lance's Dragonite decides to fly somewhere. From here, it becomes an Earthquake show. Android 18 just slams the ground over and over and over again, while Dragonite occasionally swoops in with a KO. We were honestly a bit too strong for them. There was no danger, no tension, just a slow stomp to the finish line. The battle ends with a clean sweep, and Team Rocket is left licking their wounds once again. Now that the underground base is completely handled, our next target is none other than the gym himself, Pryce. Now Pryce opens up with a seal, and I don't even hesitate. Chi-Chi leads, and one Thunderbolt later and Seal's out of the picture. He then sends in Piloswine, and I see an opportunity to get Broly in some action. In hindsight, this wasn't my brightest moment. I figured one Calm Mind boost would be enough to one-shot Piloswine with Psychic, but it wasn't. Piloswine tanks it and fires back, leaving Broly at half health. Now committed, I double down and finish it with another Psychic, leaving Broly with just 33 HP. Risky? Absolutely. Was it worth it? That's debatable. His final Pokemon's a Dugong, and at this point I'm not messing around. I swap back to Chi-Chi, click Thunderbolt, and just like Seal, Dugong collapses in one hit. Just like that, 7 badges are now ours. The momentum's really picking up and we're blitzing through the game now. You love to see it. Where our next destination set, we head to Goldenrod City, but things aren't quite normal here anymore. Team Rocket has taken over the entire radio tower, and in order to sneak in, we have to disguise ourselves with a surprisingly slick Team Rocket outfit. That is, until Boo, once again, shows up just in time to ruin our stealthy plans. Forced to go in loud, we push through wave after wave of Rocket grunts until we finally reach Petrol again, the man that refuses to go down quietly. This Petrol fight, of course, it was an absolute joke. Chi-Chi didn't just win, she wiped his entire team off the face of the earth with back-to-back-to-back Thunderbolts. That's it. No twists, no tension, just straight up domination. Honestly, that's the last time we might see Petrol, because let's be honest, the poor guy just can't get a break. But now it's time for something more serious. Our rival was waiting. This time he opened up with a Golbat, and I led with Android 18, but quickly swapped out for Chi-Chi, knowing full well how she handles flying types. Golbat hit us with a Confuse Ray right off the bat, and Chi-Chi boinked herself in the face. Not a great start, but thankfully she powered through the confusion next turn and fried the Golbat with a Thunderbolt. Haunter came out next, so we threw in Piccolo. One bite was all it took to exercise that ghost right out of the battle. Then came Magnemite, and same old story. Just like Jasmine's Magnemite, Android 18 used Earthquake and turned it into scrap metal. But lava followed, and we decided to stay in with Android 18 and drown it out with Surf. This part was a little tense, we took more damage than expected, and Android 18 barely made it out alive, but we survived. And then came Sneasel, and this is where things got messy. In a panic, I swapped into Broly. For what reason, I genuinely couldn't tell you. Maybe I thought he needed some screen time. Either way, Sneasel landed a feint attack that nearly took Broly out. Desperate, I swapped into Chi-Chi, who also nearly fainted, and at this point my team was looking like they'd just been through a war. Our final hope was Goku, and thankfully, Chi-Chi had already put Sneasel in the red, so Goku just had to walk in and finish the job with Razor Leaf. Crisis barely averted, and once again our rival slinks away defeated. Let's just hope he starts taking notes soon. Next up was Team Rocket Executive Proton. It's been a while since we last saw him. I was kind of curious to see how much stronger he'd gotten. He led with a Golbat, and once again Chi-Chi delivered the standard Thunderbolt treatment, instant KO. Then came his Wheezing, and I sent in Broly, and bam, one Psychic later and Proton was out of Pokemon. Honestly, this guy felt more like a warm-up than a boss. Executive Ariana was next. She opens up with Arbok, and I respond with Broly. You already know how this goes. One Psychic, down goes the Snake. Then comes Murkrow, which, you guessed it, one Thunderbolt, lights out. For final Pokemon, Vileplume seemed like it'd be a little bit tougher, so I took the opportunity to finally show off Janemba, the shiny red Gyarados that we caught earlier. Janemba uses Ice Fang, but surprisingly it didn't knock out. Vileplume hangs on, but not for long. One more Ice Fang seals the deal. Janemba's debut, short, sweet, and effective. Last but not least, we faced Executive Archer, the apparent big boss of Team Rocket's Shoto operation. He led with Houndour, and I led with Andrew 18. Surf took care of it with one shot. Then came his ace Houndoom. It survived the first surf, but it couldn't stand up to the second. And finally, Coughing. We swapped into Broly, poisoned or not, one Psychic shut it down. And just like that, Team Rocket was done. But before we could celebrate, it was time to trek through one of the most obnoxious caves in Johto, the Ice Path. Now look, I've got a bone to pick with this place. Between the constant slipping, the sliding puzzles, and the awkward item placements, the Ice Path feels more like a punishment than a passage. I'd honestly put it right up there with Fire Red's Rock Tunnel. You know, the one where if you forgot Flash, you basically had to feel your way through the darkness like some kind of blind Zubat. Eventually, after slipping into every corner at least once, we made it out. At long last, we had reached Blackthorn City, the final checkpoint before the Elite Four, the home of the dragons, and more importantly, the final badge. Time to challenge Claire, the strongest gym leader in the Johto region, and see if our powerhouse of a team is up to the task. Walking into her gym feels less like entering a place of battle and more like stepping into some ancient dragon dojo, complete with lava pits and platforms that look like they would collapse at any second. Claire opens up with her Gyarados and I send out Chi-Chi. Now we all know how this plays out. Gyarados has a crippling 4 times weakness to electric, so the matchup is about as lopsided as a Magikarp trying to bench press a Snorlax. One Thunderbolt later, and Gyarados is out cold before it even gets a chance to blink. Claire isn't wasting time though. Out comes her first Dragonair, and here's where things start getting a little dicey. I swap into Janemba, hoping to wall it out and land an Ice Fang, but Dragonair instantly paralyzes us. Great start. To make it worse, it fires off a Dragon Pulse that chunks about a quarter of our health. Not terrible, but with paralysis in play, we're basically flipping a coin on whether Janemba can even move. Next turn, Dragonair drills us with another Dragon Pulse, bringing us to half. Luckily, Janemba breaks through the paralysis and answers back with a ruthless Ice Fang. Claire immediately fully restores her Dragonair, but we slam it again with another Ice Fang. And then, disaster. Another Dragon Pulse comes in, this time a critical hit, leaving Janemba hanging on with 2 HP. Somehow, by pure willpower, we land one final Ice Fang to take it out. That was way too close for comfort. But Claire isn't done. She sends in another Dragonair. At this point, I decided to rotate into Piccolo, who tanks a hit and retaliates with 2 Poison Fangs, leaving Dragonair in the red. I swap into Broly to finish the job, and we finally breathe for a second. Her final Pokemon, the infamous Kingdra, the one Claire's known for. I lead with Goku and set up a light screen to soften the incoming special attacks. Then I pivot to Chi-Chi, who immediately eats a smoke screen. I somehow land the Thunder Wave despite the accuracy drop, slowing the Seahorse down. But with light screen fading, I retreat back to Goku to get it back up and start chipping away at Kingdra. Once it's down to about half HP, Chi-Chi tags back in and closes the fight with a clean Thunderbolt. And just like that, Claire is down. Well, sort of. We don't actually get the badge right away like Whitney. She makes us trek to the Dragon's Den for some post-battle gatekeeping. And after passing their little quiz on how to be a good trainer, we finally secure our 8th badge. But before we can even think about the Elite Four, we've got one more gauntlet. The Kimono girls. Yeah, those Eevee evolution trainers who don't even give you a chance to breathe between battles. First up is Umbreon. Piccolo slices it down to the red with X Scissor and finishes it off the next turn. Then comes Espeon, so Broly steps in and erases it with 2 brutal Shadow Balls. Flareon, Janemba handles it with a couple of Waterfalls, though he limps out of the fight with heavy damage and a burn. Jolteon gets sent straight to the Shadow Realm by Android 18 with a single Earthquake. Finally, Vaporeon enters the ring, and you already know Chi-Chi's Thunderbolt takes care of it in 2 hits. Our reward? A ticket straight to Whirl Islands to meet one of my favorite legendaries, Lugia. After a bit of travel, we find it, catch it, and name it Beerus. It's not going to be joining the main team, but it helps people who haven't figured out the nickname theme just yet. And now we march towards Victory Road, the last stretch before the Pokemon League. But just before we make it out, there he is, Boo, standing in our way one last time for a final rival battle. So a quick heads up before we dive in. For some reason, my recording software decided to throw a tantrum during this fight with Boo. So if the footage looks a little funky or it skips around, that's why. Boo leads with a Sneasel and I send out Android 18. You already know how this goes. One clean Earthquake later and Sneasel's eating dirt. Now here's where the missing footage kicks in. Right after that, he actually brought out his Golbat and I swapped into Chi-Chi to handle it. Sadly, you won't see that moment, but essentially just picture a Golbat regretting all its life choices after a Thunderbolt. After Golbat, Boo sends out his Haunter. I keep Chi-Chi in and hit it with a Signal Beam, expecting an easy one-shot. Nope. Haunter barely hangs on, probably just to annoy me. One more Signal Beam takes it out, no problem. Then comes his Typhlosion, his ace. I don't even think twice. I swap into Janemba, who hits it with a crushing waterfall that sends the fire starter packing. Next up, Magneton, and you already know Android 18 lives for this moment, so Earthquake, one hit, gone. Another Magnemite family member sent to the Shadow Realm. Finally, Boo throws out his Kadabra. I bring in Broly, who's more than happy to finish things off. One Shadow Ball later, and Kadabra is down for the count. And just like that, we've taken down Boo in our final fight before the Pokemon League. What a way to close out the rivalry. But with that victory, we officially stepped through the gates of the Pokemon League. Every battle, every hunt, every close call has led to this moment. The team is ready, no substitutions, no hesitation, just the 6 heroes that carried us here. Broly the Espeon, our psychic powerhouse, Android 18, the Quagsire, Queen of Earthquake, Janemba the Gyarados, Master of Intimidation and Raw Strength, Goku the Meganium, our unshakable wall, Chi-Chi the Ampharos, lighting up the battlefield, Piccolo the Crobat, our speed demon and poison specialist. We're prepped, we're ready, it's time to conquer the Elite Four and take this run all the way. We walk into the first room of the Pokemon League ready to kick things off, and who's waiting for us? Will, the man with the cape, the mask, and apparently an unhealthy obsession with psychic types. He starts off with his Xatu, and I send out Broly. Broly just smirks and decides to flex a little with a Calm Mind boost. But Xatu isn't sticking around, and U-turns out into another Xatu. Broly's like, cool, free KO, and drops a Shadow Ball that instantly deletes it from existence. The original Xatu comes back in, and well, deja vu. Another Shadow Ball, another one-shot. It's getting embarrassing at this point, but it is what it is. Will tries to mix things up by sending in Executor, but Broly isn't done. Third Shadow Ball in a row, another one-hit KO. Then comes Jinx. You already know how this goes. 4 Shadow Balls, 4 one-shots. Slowbro tries to break the pattern, but no, make it 5 in a row. Broly didn't just sweep. He basically told Will thanks for the XP, man, and walked out without a scratch. Next up, Koga, the Ninja Bug Poison Master himself, ready to ruin my day with status moves, toxic spikes, and stalling tactics. He leads with Ariados, and I send out Broly again, and Broly's like, I don't have time for this. One Psychic later, and Ariados is gone. Then comes Fortress. I know Broly isn't built for this, so I swap into Android 18. Fortress wastes no time setting up toxic spikes, clearly trying to play the long game. Android 18 answers with an Earthquake that chunks it down to about 65% HP. Fortress just shrugs and uses Swift, so I go for Surf, leaving it limping at about 15. Koga panics and hits it with a full restore. I respond with another Earthquake. At this point, I swap into Goku thinking we could finish things off. Goku uses Strength, and then Fortress explodes. Yeah, Koga went full kamikaze. Both Fortress and Goku go down, and just like that, our perfect Hardcore Nuzlocke run is over. No flawless victory, my heart is shattered. But Broly, Broly's pissed. I send him back in, and he immediately demolishes the rest of Koga's team like they just personally insulted him. Venomoth, Psychic. Muck, Psychic. Crobat, Psychic. No setup, no mercy. Broly just mows them down in a revenge-fueled rampage. We then step into Bruno's chamber, the air thick with the smell of sweat and determination. Bruno's eyes are locked on mine, no words, no banter, just pure fighting spirit. His first Pokemon Hitmontop spins into battle like a living buzzsaw. But Broly doesn't even flinch. One Psychic later, Hitmontop is nothing but a memory. Then comes Onix, a towering wall of rock and stubbornness. I swap into Janemba, ready to drown this boulder, but Bruno throws a curveball. Sandstorm, fine. I pivot again into Android 18 to set up the rain. Onix tries to break through with Rock Slide and Earthquake, but once the skies open up, Surf obliterates it in a single wave. Hitmonlee comes in hot, but Android 18 plants her feet and hits back with a devastating Earthquake. Machamp stomps in next, all bulging muscles and dangerous intent. Cross Chop rips through Android 18, nearly taking her out, but she returns fire with an Earthquake, leaving the champ hanging on by a Citrus Berry. I can't risk losing her here though, so Broly returns to the field. And just like that, Machamp crumbles to another Psychic. His Hitmonchan follows, falling just as quickly. Bruno nods in approval, maybe even respect, but the scoreboard doesn't lie. Broly's still the MVP, and we're moving on to our next challenge. The fourth and final Elite Four member that we're faced against is none other than Karen. Karen steps forward with that sly smile like she already knows she's about to test our patience. She opens up with Umbreon, a Pokemon built to stall, frustrate, and generally make you question your life choices. Android 18 starts by summoning the rain, but Umbreon wastes no time in stacking double teams like a magician pulling endless scarves out of a hat. Earthquake starts missing, feint attacks chip away, and before long, I've had enough of playing this accuracy roulette, so I send in Chi-Chi, who slices through the darkness with Signal Beam and Thunderbolt, eventually breaking Umbreon down, though she does take a paralysis for her trouble. Houndoom charges in, eyes blazing, but Janemba dives in and absolutely erases it with Waterfall. Murkrow's up next, and I give Chi-Chi another shot. It's close, Murkrow nearly drops her with a feint attack, but Thunderbolt puts the bird to rest. Gengar tries to spook Broly, but Focus Blast barely tickles, and a single Psychic sends it packing. Karen's last hope, Vileplume, doesn't fare any better. Another Psychic, another one-shot. Karen simply nods, and I know we've earned our final fight. Alas, we enter the final room. The Champion's Chamber is silent, but heavy with pressure. Lance doesn't waste any time. Gyarados roars into battle, its presence filling the entire room, and Chi-Chi barely has any time to react before a Waterfall slams into her. But she fires back with a 4 times effective Thunderbolt that sends Gyarados crashing down. Its first Dragonite storms in, leaving Chi-Chi at literally 1 HP with Outrage, but she manages to paralyze it before swapping to Janemba. Janemba eats another Outrage and fires off an Ice Fang, bringing it to the brink. One more Ice Fang finishes the job. Aerodactyl takes the stage, but after a hard exchange, Android 18 lands a crushing Surf before passing the baton to Piccolo, who finishes it off with a Fly. Another Dragonite appears, and this battle gets wild. Poison Fang inflicts poison, Thunder Wave slows us down, Dragon Rush misses, and Wing Attack secures the knockout in a stunning turnaround. The third Dragonite finally takes Piccolo down with Blizzard, and we're forced to send Chi-Chi back in to paralyze it. What follows is a ridiculous sequence. Paralysis turns, Dragon Rush misses, Blizzard misses, Full restores, more paralysis. RNG is definitely leaning on our side until Blizzard finally lands, ending Chi-Chi's run. Janemba takes the field to clean up the chaos, Waterfall wipes out Dragonite, and his final Pokemon Charizard doesn't even get to breathe before another Waterfall sends it crashing out of the sky, crowning us the new Johto League champion. And just like that, my very first shiny only run in Johto's complete. This one was a lot of fun. The road here was full of brutal losses, clutch plays, and RNG moments that could have made or broken this challenge. But in the end, we stood victorious. This is just the beginning though. I've still got 2 more shiny only Johto runs planned, 1 for each individual starter, so stay tuned for even more chaos. Funny thing is, Lance probably thinks he lost to a lucky trainer. Nah man, you lost to Sparkles. If you enjoyed the run, don't forget to subscribe, comment below, and like the video. It helps a ton and lets me know you want to see more crazy challenges like this one. Thank you guys for all the support recently. I know I haven't been uploading as often, but I do have a lot of plans for new content this year. Now, who's ready for the next adventure?